Okay. Well, it's a pleasure and honor to be part of this inauguration. I believe it's very important that we can mobilize for secularism. I use the word mobilize. I'll get into it, why. I use words that are probably not very common among the secularist movement. Well, there are very pertinent questions put in this, actually. When I read it, I thought, well, I got the questions for my speech. It's very much to what I would like to deal with, the questions that are put here about secularism. It's very much current questions. It's very much what we need today. And I think we should actually focus on that. But before getting into that, it's very interesting. We had this long conversation last night over dinner, very interesting conversation. And then when I went to bed, I kept waking up every hour by the church bell. And I thought, so ironic, I've come here to Holland with all these statistics, and we are going to inaugurate this, and then I've been waking up every single hour. For a moment, about 3, 4 o'clock, I thought I'm back in Tehran of the Islamic frenzy of hearing this azan from the loudspeakers, which I hated ever since I was a little child. I hated that noise. But they would only do it 5 times a day. You see? For your prayer in the morning, for your prayer at noon, for your prayer in the afternoon, and for your night prayer. And they would leave you alone till 5 o'clock in the morning. But this church bell was going on every single hour. Anyway, I'll get to the subject of today. Well, to be or not to be secular, it says here, and it says one of the most important political questions. I agree, but it says that religious should be stay out of politics. Religion should be non-political. This is impossible. Religion is political. It's to this born political. It's about power struggle in the society, about how you're going to get power, how you're going to make your influences, how you're going to make laws, how even, as Paul was mentioning, they're going to tell you how to act in your bedroom. And if you don't act properly in your bedroom, they can stone you to death. This is religion. It's all about politics. You cannot make religion apolitical. You cannot push it out of the sphere of politics. It's very political and is one of the most important ingredients of our dominant ideology. No matter if you live in Holland or Iran or Cairo or wherever, whatever the dominant ideology is, religion is part and parcel of that. Here, very secularist movements talks about our Christian culture being invaded by the Muslim culture. They're secularists. They're talking about, or maybe even atheists, but they talk about Christian culture. And I'm supposed to be representing maybe Muslim culture. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is religion is political to the bone. What we have to do is cut off its hands from influencing our lives, influencing our society, influencing our education, brainwashing our kids. So what we have to do is separation of religion from state and fight with it at the political field that it tries to overcome our society. Well, they used to say separation of church from state. Maybe for Christianity that had some validity. I'm not very good in that part of history. There are great scholars here who know better. But now that you think about religion, all religions, like you can't talk about separation of mosques from religion, from state. You have to talk about separation of religion, the religion establishment, the mafia of religion. I'm really serious. To me, religious institution is just like Godfather. It's mafia. The way they make extortion, the way they brainwash you, the way they force you, the way they terrorize you, the way they, with their suicide bombers, with honor killings, with now these Mormons in US, you find 14-year-old being pregnant or whatever. When you look at it, it's a mafia institution. So what we have to do, we have to talk about separation of religion from state, from our education, from legislation, and religion being a private matter. Whoever wants to believe in whatever, I don't care. I like this sentence by Wafa Sultan a lot. She says, I don't care. Whatever piece of a stone you want to believe in, but just don't throw it at me. I think this is how we should look at it. We should look at religion. There were very impressive statistics here presented to us by Rob and Paul. I was sitting there, I didn't know these statistics. I thought, my goodness, our secular is so actually, the population is so large. Then why are we so silent? Why are we so complacent? Why don't we do anything? And when you look at it, if you find 50 religious people, really fanatic religious people, they change the city for you overnight. But you find 1,000 atheists, nothing happens. Decent people who believe in freedom, who are very tolerant towards every other thinking, who believe in free thinking, have become very complacent, and they let religious fanaticism, religious cruelty, religious misogynism override our lives. That's unacceptable. I really think it's unacceptable. You see, we are a bit different. I say we here, I just want to make an example of, like, if you would find many people now from Iran and now from Iraq as well, especially women who are very much outspoken against religion, they have felt it firsthand with their own skin, what religion can do to you, how it can ruin your life. Kill your brother, sister, husband, partner, wife. How it can destroy happiness. So we are not going to stand there and look and see how these religious movements, which are, as I said, very political, to come and take over our lives, even though they're not a very big majority. The statistics in US really, really shocked me but what you hear, not living in US, is about Christian majority, about Catholicism, it's all about the war of crusades between different religions. How come you don't hear American atheists or secularists to hear their voice? Why don't they voice their opinions? Why you would be, what you see, for example, in American election this time, I'm not for Democratic Party or any of the party. I don't see much difference, to be honest with you, between either of them. But the only thing that has captured me watching it is the first woman and first black in the history of US are running for candidacy. That's important. It's a great breakthrough. When can we see the first atheist to run for presidency? Someone who can come out and say, I'm an atheist, I don't give a damn about church, I think religion should be private, and hands off society. I know he won't win or she won't win, but would he dare or would she dare? It's a question of daring. And that's what religious movements do. They dare. They're very presumptuous. They take over. I'm not saying we should be the same way, but I think we should use some of their methods. It's great to be among scholars It's great to be among philosophers. It's great to be among people who appreciate secularism. But if we do not go out, take the message out, we're going to be forever 100 people at the most in any lecture hall for this inauguration, for next inauguration, and then we'll have lectures again. Same people as a clique, as a community, will come and listen to you and then go home. While, you know how many honor killings happen every year? 17,000 honor crimes, according to the police in England, happened last year in Britain. And that's only conservative figures, because many of them are not reported. In Sweden now, they've started something called balcony girls. Very interesting. You know what happens? They go push the girl off the balcony, and they say that was suicide. Thanks to movements against honor crimes, women's movements, secularist movements, the police has paid attention that if a girl seems to have committed suicide, it's a crime, not a suicide. So now, if a girl is pushed off a balcony, they go see what happened. Many honor crimes are not reported. We cannot just sit and just go to lectures, read our books, be decent human beings, be tolerant human beings. This is great. But we need to popularize our movement. We need to get into public. We need to get into public and mainstream in order to voice our opinion, our ideas, and be influential. That is, when you're talking about secularism is the most important political question or trend, politics is about power. Not in the bad sense of the word, because many times when you talk about power, everyone gets, you need power in order to influence, in order to change, in order to bring about. All those Paul was talking here, they're all great, but he keeps saying, if we can, if we can, if we can. I'm saying we have to say, we can. This is a difference. Not if we can, we must be able to. We should do it. That's a different emphasis. We have a great philosopher and scholars among the secularist movements. What we need, more campaigners, more activists, more people who are not, I'm not saying the philosophers are not passionate, they just have their own way of being passionate. Passionate about changes that should come about in society. Anytime you hear a child being brainwashed by the rubbish that is being taught, you should get passionate and angry and try to do something about it. Anytime they pass a law that you cannot criticize religion, you should get angry and come out and do something about it. Anytime you hear a girl has been beaten up or killed with this stupid honor, I'm not getting to that. I have written an article and made speeches on how we should not call honor crimes. We should call them terrorist action against women. My article is going to come out soon. You should come out and you should do something about it. Anytime you see a child, 8 years old, under the veil, you should get angry and do something about it. It's abuse. It's pure, sheer abuse of children's rights to put a girl under the veil. Deprive her of a well-being, happiness, life. This is what I'm talking about when I say mobilize, when I say we have to get out, we have to do something. But to do that, we have to understand why, despite all these amazing figures we heard here, we are facing a surge in religious movements. Why are these so-called religious movements are overtaking the society? What happens besides the necessity that philosophically you might think that desperation, people need to believe in something, desperate measures, desperate situations call for desperate measure. I really believe in that famous quotation by Marx, religion as an opium of the masses. But plus that, why are we seeing this, what's happening? And here again, I see it as a very, very political movement, which I think we can easily describe it. I'm going to get into political Islam. That's my specialty. I know more about Islamic movements and political Islam than I know about the other religious movements. Why is political Islam becoming so strong? It's not time now to get into how it came about, how the West gave birth to political Islam. I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into Bin Laden, Mujahideen, Afghanistan, Khomeini, and all of that. I'm talking about now. I'm talking about since September 11. Why? Why is political Islam becoming so strong? Because, especially after the war against Iraq, political Islam portrayed itself, falsified itself as an liberation ideology for the so-called Muslim people, for people living in Middle East, in North Africa. All those problems they have, when they saw how Iraq is being ruined, how it's being bombarded to the Middle Ages, how the society is being torn apart, the anger against imperialism, whatever they mean by it, I'm not going to get into that either, they turn back to Islamic movement. If you don't understand why we see more young women with veil, not only in Morocco, Ibn Warraq in his speech, I remember in London mentioned how in Morocco, which was a very secular country, now you see more and more girls under the veil. In Lebanon, even some Christian women to sympathize with Hezbollah do it. In Palestine, which was one of the most secular countries, not in Iran though, that's another thing, but also in England, but also in US. You see young girls whose mothers never wore a veil voluntarily choose the veil. Isn't that a dilemma? How do we explain this? How an 18-year-old, 20-year-old student who knows about reasons and who's probably read some of the books we're talking here about secularism chooses to cover herself and finds liberation in that. Doesn't see it as a slavery. It looks at it as a symbol of liberation. Why? For me, the answer is simple. Maybe I cannot convince you, but this is how I see it. Is what we see, that so-called war on terror has strengthened Islamists as a political movement, as an ideology in the world, and the byproduct of the war on terror and September 11th, which is racism in the West against whoever looks Muslim, and marginalizing just made them turn back and say, okay, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Just so simple. 2 times 2 is 4. No complication. They've turned into Islamic movement. It really saddens me when I see these girls. And if you look at them, I mean, having been raised and born in a country that Islam was the religion, I can really distinguish between who religiously and traditionally wears a veil and who looks at veil as a political statement. Their whole outfit is different. I made this example last time too. Look at them. They have Calvin Klein jeans on, some of them. Ray-Ban sunglasses, Gucci bags, and a veil. This is not traditional religious veil that my aunt would wear, or some of my cousins were forced to wear. This is a political statement. And in order to approach it, to deal with it, we have to answer in that same field. We have to present another alternative. You don't need to turn to Islamists if you're angry at the US policies. You don't need to turn to the Islamists if you're angry with what happened in Iraq or Lebanon, if you're angry with the Israeli policies of collective punishment in Gaza Strip. You don't need to do that. We should present them with a third alternative, a third voice, a libertarian voice, which is against both Islamic terrorism and US or imperialism, or what have you, what concept you have, militarism or terrorism, as I call it. So what Paul here was trying to present to us as the sort of moral ethics and what we should sort of is a kind of program as that any political party has. We should be able to put a third voice and try to attract the decent humanity, and there are a lot of them, who are silenced, who don't know what to do. Try to make this silent majority voiceful, bring them out, not only in the West. There are a lot of them in Middle East. There are people who are caught up in the fire. US and Islamists are fighting, and there are people falling to their death desperately. They don't want to be with any of them. Why can't we, decent people, be the third voice? This is the way we can get rid of Islamism. You cannot get rid of Islamism only by writing books, only by showing how misogynist Quran is. They have their answers. I've done that. I've argued since I was 10 years old against misogynism in Islam and Quran, with my mother, with my aunt, with my teachers, and then as a political activist. And I realized that doesn't work. Really, it doesn't work that much. You don't make that many conversions, if you like. This has been my experience with Islam. I don't have an experience with other religions. You have to have a solid socio-political response, an alternative for the society. An ideological, that ideologically makes sense to them. We have to tear apart this ideological falsification that Islamism tries to portray as a liberation theology, if you like. Now, many Arabs whose nationalism is hurt for years and years and years by Israel and US, especially after Lebanon, they turn to Hezbollah. That's so sad. The result of the war in Lebanon was not only more than 1,000 deaths, many thousand injured, 1 million displaced, half of the society ruined. It made Nasrallah the hero of the Arabs. You can build the city maybe with just some money and try to get, but what are you going to do with this legacy? Of very intelligent, liberal thinking, even feminist poets in Egypt looking at Nasrallah as their hero. That's tragedy. That's tragedy. And to show that as secularists and humanists, we understand that we have to dissociate ourselves from these kind of policies. And we have to present a third voice. Otherwise, Islamists and the ones who've been fooled by Islamists are going to look at you with suspicious all time, because they are the ones who are randomly picked every day when they go through the security check at the airport. They are the ones who randomly are checked on the streets for bombs. They are the ones who feel alienated here, and they are the ones who see the bombs coming on their head. You see, that is the problem, you know, that the pragmatism that is prevalent among us, the society and human beings, or when they see two evils, to their opinion, they choose the lesser evil. I saw that happen in 1979 in Iran. I saw many women, left women, taking the veil, thinking, first the Shah must go, then we get rid of whatever that's bad. And then, against imperialism, supporting Khomeini. But that was only for a short time. And now we still stick with the whole regime for 30 years. After more than 100,000 executions, so many injuries, 1 million killed in Iraq, and on and on and on. So much poverty in a country so rich with oil. But then they thought if they have compromises with the Islamists against the Shah, then they're going to go forward. And this is the mistake now everyone else is making. Not Iran, they've learned their lesson. They don't do that. But everywhere else, in the Middle East or North Africa. This is very important. We have to see, I mean, if you agree, this is how I see it. I mean, it's not only the young generation or second generation from the Islamic communities or so-called Muslim communities. You see Western left do that too. I remember I wrote an article on that. My daughter is a philosophy student. She's graduating. Her friend came over and we're sitting and talking, and she said that she has a very good friend and she just doesn't understand what's happening to her. She's lesbian, she's left with Workers' Socialist Party or something. You probably know whatever. And she has put a poster of Nasrullah on her wall. Nasrullah, in a room of a 22-year-old lesbian left. She has all the ingredients for hating Nasrullah. Being a woman, first. Being left, second. Being a lesbian. If Nasrullah finds her, he's going to execute her, just for being a lesbian. But she has the poster of Nasrullah, we are all Hezbollah now. She just couldn't understand. And I tried to talk to her, and it just really shocked me, and I wrote an article. If you want to bring all those posters down, you have to also have an ideological and political answer. You cannot only change the situation with great scholarly philosophy, books, and lectures. These are great, we should have them, but we need a political movement which has a very clear political platform, which can explain this, which can answer all these questions. This way, at least we can get rid of the Islamists. Then we can go to the Catholic Church and others. Thank you.